Hello, Internet. This is Daniel with Driving and Dragons, and today it's time to talk once again about the OGL. This time I want to answer a question that has been pretty common in the threads, and a lot of this comes from the people who just want to bury their head in the sand or who just don't understand. And that is why players and individuals who are not publishers or producers are trying to profit off of the OGL, why any of us should care, why it's important, and also a quick response to the concept of, oh, we'll all just go play our own systems, we'll all just go play our own games, and why would this matter if you can just kind of make your own non-OGL content? See you on the other side. So OGL 1.1, you get a lot of people out there who will say, well, this only affects publishers, this only affects content creators, this only affects, some of them will even try and tell you it only affects people who make so much money, because a lot of people don't understand that $750,000 in revenue is not really a tremendous amount of money in the big scheme of things. It's it's a decent little mid-sized company, especially for something like a role-playing games publisher. But we've all seen Kickstarters that amass a couple $100,000 just to do some kind of campaign setting source book type deal. But what I'm focused on here is comments to the like of, why should we have to care about this? We'll just play at our own table. I've homebrewed the whole time, so this doesn't affect me. What does it mean? What are the outside ramifications that are not directly part of what's written into this new OGL? And I think a lot of people kind of miss their cues. So, data is spotty at best. Tabletop role-playing games are kind of lumped in as a small portion of the hobby gaming community, which is in and of itself a small portion of other metrics. In the big business, it's not a huge market. It is not a big market at all. Even if you look at Wizards of the Coast, Magic the Gathering dwarfs D&D many times over. Dwarfs it. And D&D is the same kind of shadow over the rest of the tabletop role-playing game community. So a lot of the data, you have to go in, you have to do a lot of digging, a lot of reports. Some of those reports are not reports that you can easily access for free, that you got to start digging and digging through the data to kind of piece together some stuff, do some math, do some other analysis. And luckily for me, that's what my formal education in is, economics and finance. So these financial reports are not something that I have a problem with. But as general rule of thumb, like, you look at some trends in history, and when TSR started suing everybody out of existence, it almost killed Dungeons and Dragons. And it almost killed tabletop roleplay, because all of these other games added together do not come close to what D&D is. I mean, Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition by itself holds well over 50% of the tabletop role-playing game market. That doesn't include anybody playing any older editions. So, you add up everything else, including all the past editions of Dungeons and Dragons, every OSR game, every spin-off, Pathfinder, Call of Cthulhu, Cyberpunk, Gamma World, Aliens, Hollow Earth, anything. All these tabletop games, combine them all, and they don't even match Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition by itself. So, unbelievable market share. So when Dungeons and Dragons starts to collapse, that kind of means that the tabletop community, the market share is starting to collapse as well. There's a significant amount of contraction. For every one player who is going to say, I'm going to go play a different game, or I want to use a different system, there's going to be another player who says, I'm just going to stay with my old system. And then there's going to be 8 other players who just stop playing altogether. It's like, I'm done with it. I'm over it. The new stuff doesn't really appeal to me. I played the old stuff for a while. I'm attention span, and if I don't always have new stuff, I'm just going to go find something different. So we saw this with TSR towards the end of its collapse. We saw this with Wizards when 4th edition came out. A lot of people like to point and say, oh, when they did it with 4th edition and they went to the GSL as opposed to instead of the OGL, the GSL instead of the OGL. Oh, had to raise Pathfinder up, and for a couple of years, Pathfinder even had a bigger market share than Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, well, at least the Wizards of the Coast. What they don't look at is that it wasn't that Pathfinder suddenly got bigger than Dungeons. It wasn't like Dungeons and Dragons had 1 million players, and Pathfinder went from 100,000 players to 1,000,005 players. It wasn't even that Dungeons and Dragons was at 1 million, Pathfinder was at 100,000, and Dungeons and Dragons lost 600,000, and they all went to Pathfinder, and now it's 700 versus 400,000. That's not what happened. What happened is the entire market shrank, and yeah, Pathfinder went from 100,000 to 250, but Dungeons and Dragons went from 1 million to 250, and we lost 1 million players out of the market. Now that's just an example of what I'm talking about when I say the entire market contracts. The reason this matters to us as players and dungeon masters is twofold. One, it is going to make considerably less content for us to look at. Less ideas, less growth, less new adventures, less modules, less supplement books. And the reason is because not just because these other publishers and stuff stop making D&D and that sort of thing, but because they have to make less of it, and there's a lot fewer of them, because a lot of us look at it and the barrier to entry just got a lot higher. What makes it successful just became a lot harder. So a lot of creators just don't get into it. And then you have the looming, a lot of them just don't want to do it. And the ones that are doing it, are going to be a lot more safe with it. So with the open game license, if I want to make, a fairy pirates settlement or setting where everybody plays a fey creature and it's fey pirates and it goes out there, there's not really a reason for me not to make it. If it's a miserable failure, it's a miserable failure. Who cares? I don't have to put a lot into it to make this miserable failure. Well, and if it gets a little bit of traction, and maybe somebody like Cobble Press wants to do some stuff with it, they can put some stuff out there, and if it doesn't really take off, it's not that big a deal. They can't do that now. They would have to bet on safe things. They would have to, in other words, your creators can't take as many risks with new material because of the added burden of what Wizards of the Coast is adding to them. Before, Cobble Press could take a gamble on something because they make up for it with these other popular things they have on the side. Well, now with Wizards of the Coast stepping in and taking 25-30% of that other side, they can no longer afford the risk of taking a shot that maybe turns out to be something we all enjoy. So there's less for us as players, less for us as game masters, or in this case, dungeon masters, as a whole. The other thing is the contraction of the player base. And you're going to have some grognards out there. I'm very close to the same. Where it's like, we've been playing with the same groups for a long time. I'm playing with close personal friends, people that I know. If I want new players, I just ask friends if they want to play. Just like we did in the old days. But there's a couple of problems to that. One, what happens if you have the jackass player? Or you have the player who comes in who doesn't want to play anymore? Or he doesn't jive with the rest of the group? It's a lot harder to get rid of and replace when you can't just hop on looking for group. When there's a lot fewer players to choose from, that's going to mean that you're going to have to put up with more at your tables. The other thing is finding groups. Because we already have an issue with not having really enough game masters. There's the dungeon master crisis, so to speak. You want to find a way to make it worse? Because you're going to lose more game masters than you are players, to be honest. I mean, you'll lose more raw number of players, but you're not going to lose so many players that it's going to make up for the number of DMs you're going to lose. Because the DMs are the ones who are most hurt and most attacked by the change of the directly by the changes in the OGL. Now it's harder to find groups. Now it's more difficult to find replacement party members because it has become a situation where you don't have the same pool to pull from. You don't even have the same number of people that you can convert from 5th edition to your game. Or even if you're going to stay playing 5th edition, you're not going to have the same number of people. You're going to lose people to FOMO, to fear of missing out, who go to One D&D. You're going to lose people to sunk cost fallacy who try One D&D, get hooked up, have the subscription service or whatever, and now they've put money into it. They don't want to come back because they've sunk money into it. They want to get their money's worth. You're going to lose players to just apathy when there's not as much good content coming out. There's not as many options. There's not as much variety. So you're going to lose some of these more modern-minded players who are all about the here and now. They don't care about the past. They don't care about the future. All they care about is what they can get right now. And right now they're bored. So they're going to leave D&D and play something else. And then you're going to have to give them a reason to come back. These are some of the tangential effects of the OGL 1.1 and what it can do to the community as a whole. One of the biggest problems with Dungeons & Dragons having such a ubiquitous stance in the world and in popular culture, having such media presence and having such a great market share, is that when something hurts the Dungeons & Dragons community, it trickles down and hurts all of us. And you think you're safe because you play Cyberpunk? You don't. You're not safe. You think that, but you aren't safe. Why? Because now that publisher who makes some supplementary material for Cyberpunk is going to back off of that Cyberpunk stuff because they can no longer run the risk of that small market game when Dungeons & Dragons has not only contracted, so they're getting less player base and less people to market to over on Dungeons & Dragons, but they're also having to pay royalties. So now you've got a Green Ronin Gaming or a Cobble Press or another one of these open game licensing publishers that their bread and butter is Dungeons & Dragons, and they're no longer going to make any kind of additional supplements for some of your older games. They may not even make anything for your OSR games because they don't want to. They know that Dungeons & Dragons is where the bulk of the money is at. They need to hammer down and bunker down that fortress. And what they don't need is to invite a lawsuit because they make stuff for some OSR stuff. They make some more open content, some older content. There's not enough money in it anymore to make up for the risk. So that's how we all lose. You've got to look at the OGL as more than just a problem for publishers, as more than just a problem for people who use published stuff. I play 2nd edition and I just use my old, it's all pen and paper over here. Okay? I hope you still have players. I hope when one of your older players, life happens, they're an adult and say, hey, I can't play anymore. I've got to move on. I had a big job change and I can't be part of the group anymore. I sure hope you can find replacements for them. Because there's just not going to be that glut, that ease of access that you can find, even with the internet, due to the contraction that it can cause in the market. And not only the contraction, it can sour the entire market. Because what you have to remember is if I pulled 1,000 people off the side of the street and asked them what they think about TTRPGs or tabletop role-playing games, or even just tabletop games, they're going to look at me like I sprouted a third head. What the heck is that? If I ask them about Dungeons & Dragons, they're going to recognize the name. Oh, yeah, that's a game. I might say, oh, isn't that Devil Worship game? Or isn't that some kind of board game? They're going to know about it. They're going to at least have a functional knowledge of it. And several of them are going to have an idea of, especially with Stranger Things being out. A lot of them are actually going to have a general idea of how it's played. Oh, isn't that played with like little toys and dice and demons and stuff, and you fight demons? They're going to have some functional knowledge of it. That's how deep it is into the culture. So having that get hurt is just and soured is just going to be bad for the hobby as a whole. Because, like it or not, that's the kind of power that Wizards of the Coast wields over the market with their decisions. It may not be the decision. It may not be what they want. It's a chaotic power. They exercise it, and they don't really have direct control over the results. But that is the kind of power they have, and that is why, even if you're an old grognard who's still rolling from his Gary Gygax, soft cover original player's handbook, you need to be concerned about this, and you need to speak out and say, hey, look, this is not acceptable. Wizards, you need to change this. You need to go away from this. And, well, I very strongly recommend that you look into other systems, expand your horizons. Right now, that is not the answer to the problem. You should still do it. You should go play other games. You should take part in other systems. And you should enjoy other things that can happen at your table that can expand your enjoyment and add some variety to your life. You should look into these other games, especially in a world where you can get PDFs for $10, $12 for full source books instead of having to spend tons of money. But you can't pretend that it's a solution to a juggernaut like Wizards of the Coast doing something foolish in our market and in our community. So just think on that. Let me know where I'm off base. Like, share, and subscribe. And seriously, if you see this video, take a second to put your thoughts in the comment section below. I seriously want to see what your thoughts are on this topic, because we need more people talking about it, and we don't need to keep our thoughts to ourselves on it. I'll see you next time.